listening to Her Profit Era, the podcast for founders who want a business that actually works, a business that's profitable, predictable, and pays them well. I am Cindy Kumar, a CPA, a fractional CFO from Abbotsford, BC, Canada. I'm the person founders call when they're tired of high revenue months with no money left over. I started this podcast because too many founders were chasing sales while their margins, cash flow, and bank accounts told a completely different story. I believe profit and money in the bank is the standard, not a bonus, and that every founder deserves clarity around their numbers. Each week, you'll get real financial strategy you can actually use and honest conversations with founders and industry experts about what it really takes to build a business that lasts. Summan Kandola is a documentary filmmaker, producer, and transformational mindfulness coach, dedicated to helping individuals break through limiting beliefs and build empowered, intentional lives. Blending her background in media and mindfulness, she supports creatives, high performers, and growth seekers in cultivating the mindset, habits, and nervous system resilience to thrive. Her acclaimed work includes the two-time Leo-nominated film Identity of Wellness, CBC Gem, which explores the intersection of healing, identity, and collective care. Whether behind the camera or in a coaching session, Summan is known for creating brave, grounded spaces where people reconnect to their truth, release old patterns, and step into their fullest expression. Her work bridges self-awareness and creative empowerment, making transformation tangible. So let's get into the conversation. Hi, Summan. Thanks so much for joining me on Her Profit Era today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to finally chat. I feel like I've known you for over 2 years, but I've never heard the story of how you got into production and mindset coaching.
I know. I 100%. It's a
Yeah.
long journey.
Could you share a little bit about how you got into film production? And did you always know you wanted to get into a film production type of business?
Yeah, so I didn't always know that I wanted to be in film production, but I feel like life was always guiding me towards it. So back in the day, I used to work at Future Shop and I was a sales associate for the camera department. And back then I was just like, oh, it's a commission job. I make great money. I barely work. And I'm like, this is getting me through college, right?
Yeah.
And at the time I was at UVic for psychology. And so I've always had these two loves of my life. I was working with cameras and then I was also in psych. And so as time went on, I actually got a job at Shaw. And from there, I was able to take some production courses.
Oh, wow.
They had such a great program back in the day where you could, because I always wanted to do hosting. So where you can go and you can practice, and I got to practice with Fiona Forbes, like the
Oh, wow.
OG, right?
That's
And
so
so
cool.
yeah, and so through that experience I was like, oh man, like I at the same time realized that I really loved consumer psych. And so my love went into marketing, and once I fell into marketing, I realized what marketing sometimes can be it's such a big thing, right? Once you know
Right.
marketing, you're like, all right, there's multiple different types of humans within the marketing scope. And I was definitely the human within the marketing scope where I understood brand, I understood what people needed in order to get the result on the other side. But I loved creating the stuff because that was the chaos that I felt like I could hold.
Yeah.
And so from there, I got into community producing and I got laid off. And from community producing, getting laid off, I ended up meeting my current business partner through one of my contacts. And I had hit up everybody. I was like, yo, I got laid off. Does anybody know anybody who's hiring?
Yeah.
Whatever. And, I actually was when I got this opportunity, I was in between choosing whether I was going to work for this company that I wanted to work for quite some time, and then kind of going on my own and doing contract work. And I had no like inclination of like, oh, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, I'm going to be a business owner. Like I just never thought that far in the sense of like, oh, am I capable of that?
Yeah.
And then I ended up not getting the job with that company. So I was like, okay, like I'm going to take this as God's sign to go and do this. And here we are 6 years later.
It's like it was meant to be.
Yeah, 100%.
What did like the early days look like? Just like building those connections, trying to get like I guess contracts.
hmm I think were the early days were really exciting. We had a one of our first big contracts was with FWE, the Forum for Entrepreneur Women, which it's different now. I just believe it's the Forum.
The forum that,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and so we got an opportunity to produce their podcast, and that was a huge opportunity for us. One, because we had to level up. We were doing a lot of small businesses. And when you're working with different types of sizes, different size businesses, you take $1,000 as an example, okay?
Yeah.
$1,000 to Summan the coach is a lot of money, right? This
Right.
is a single sole proprietor person who like that $1,000, like they know how far they can stretch it, right?
Yeah.
Then if you take it to a bigger company, that $1,000, they've spent $1,000 101 times.
So true.
Sometimes it's worked, sometimes it hasn't worked, right? And so the way that they hold on to the money or the way that they hold on to the outcome is different. And so it was an opportunity for us to work with a company where I'm not saying that their money didn't matter. It's just that they knew that some of it's going to work, some of it's going to be a learning experience, and some of it is going to be an adjustment. And that was really cool because they ended up teaching us so much, you know?
Yeah.
Um but yeah, those early years were a lot of small businesses, a lot of favors, a lot of doing things to get your name out there, doing things because you got a logo on your website.
Yeah.
And my role was always so fascinating because I'm not the executor, I'm not the videographer, I'm not the photographer, I'm the producer, the director, the creative mind behind the stuff.
Wow.
And so n- being at this scale, it's very different because there's budgets for that, right? Being at that scale, you had to work kind of differently to be like, okay, well, I'm just going to go all in, and maybe I'm not going to make that much money, but I'm going to be able to start building my resume and building my skills um, to be able to get to the next level.
Do you still work with like small business owners or is it like bigger contracts now?
A mix. So a mix of bigger contracts, and sometimes we still work with small business owners, but I would say that we work more with medium-sized business owners now, and larger contracts.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah.
And you often hear like in production, acting, like income's very unstable. So how has that been for you cash flow wise?
Yeah. Cash flow wise, for me as the independent person, I'll take it in this question in two ways. One,
Okay.
as a company, we had to try a few different business models to figure out what is the best business model for us and what works and how are we going to scale our companies. So we're three entrepreneurs who all have different businesses as well. So we all have two or more businesses. And so though production is my main business, one of my main businesses, we had to realize like, okay, we're getting time poor, and so for that we had to figure out how to manage I think our time, which showed us how are we going to manage our cash. And so then for Suman the person, for me, I went from getting paid every 2 weeks to now getting paid here and there, and
Yeah.
then being able to get it to a place where, okay, now I'm able to get paid monthly. And so learning how to manage my cash flow from a month to month basis was a very new thing. And for a while there, it was month to month. I was living month to month. But at one point, I was making less than $3,000 a month, and my expenses were over like almost like 85% of my income. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, okay, like I had $300 to have fun. And so I was like,
Yeah.
anybody who asked me to hang out, I'm like, let's go for a walk, you
Yeah.
know? And but now, even with that $300, I would invest it. I would learn. I just invested so much time and energy in learning about money. And
Yeah.
now I'm not in that position. And so I was able to build a lot more sustainability, but I also don't adhere to the mindset anymore of like, oh, this is a feast or famine, because I also think that it's feast or famine also depending on how you manage your own cash flow and then how you manage the company's cash flow.
That's so true. And like how far in advance are you planning out like your contracts and like cash flow now? Is it still like month to month?
No, definitely like we're doing majority quarterly, but we also have like we have such a variety of types of clients. I pride myself. I've worked with the same and different contractors over the last 6 years. I have had the same clients for 6 plus years. So there is some stability when it comes to like, okay, you have the same clients, but then now that I'm doing larger projects, you're
Yeah.
getting a huge cash injection, and then you're managing that cash injection across multiple months, right? And
Right.
so some of that you can plan, while other ones, like let's say some of my smaller businesses that I work with, they might be like, hey, next week we're doing this Valentine's Day thing, and I haven't planned this at all, and so now I need this. So they're just different types.
That totally makes sense. And
Yeah.
what's like one money lesson you wish you would have learned sooner?
The first thing that came to my mind when you asked me that, one money lesson I wish I learned sooner was that I'm capable of understanding money. I think that, you know, you're gonna laugh, but I hated that trend where it's
Yeah.
like, it's girl math. And I'm just like, this is such
No.
a perpetuation of, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's such a perpetuation of, women not knowing how to manage money. And if you think about it, in my grandma's generation, that's the first time that you were actually able to have a credit card or
So
even
true.
have certain money. So of course there's things within our lineage, within our epigenetics that may make us feel that way. But I wish I learned earlier that I am empowered with money. So for example, at our store, I'll see moms and kids come in and the kid will have their money. And I never got taught that lesson. And I'm not angry for not learning that lesson. It's just the people who raised me didn't have that capacity within themselves, right?
So true. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like I would be a liar if I didn't say that sometimes I'm jealous of these little kids who are like counting their cash and they're like, okay, I have $11. And then they have to go put their snacks back and they're actually deciding, like, what do I really want? You know?
So true. Yeah. I feel like we're the generation that's going to make a difference on that end.
Yes, 100%. And then it's like exactly what you're saying. My friends who have kids now, I love to watch them teach their kids about money and even just understanding more about credit cards and taxes and interest. And I'm like, wow, I really didn't know any of this stuff. And I'm okay to admit it because
Yeah.
I was willing to put the hard work. It took me a couple of years to really grasp certain things. Like I read Ramit Sethi's book 3 times.
Wow.
And I was like, because I was like, the first time I read it, I was just inundated with so much of my own somatic discomfort. I was
Yeah.
so uncomfortable. And then I was like, okay, like I can do this. So the second time I was able to make significant shifts and changes. And the third time I was like, oh, okay, like now that I know all these things, like how can I shift my behaviors?
So true. And like, what kept you going, pushing through that discomfort? Because I know a lot of women that I work with, there's so much like fear and resistance around looking at the money side, looking at the tax side. So, like, what kind of pushed you through that?
Yeah. I think what pushed me through that, I'm a big believer that when you know better, you do better.
Yeah, so
Um,
true.
yeah, and I also just think that there's no one coming to save me. I think I got over that idea of martyrdom or victimhood or just Gina says all the time, like a man is not a savings plan. And I love when she says that because I'm like, I think that we were also the Disney generation who felt like, oh, like one day we're just going to wake up and there's going to be this, we're going to be at the top of the rainbow.
Yeah,
And then there's just no understanding of what happens after that. So I feel like what pushed me was I already know what it feels like to be broke. I already know what it feels like to be like poor in my mind. And
yeah.
so I'm like, well, I already lived that life. Let's try a different life, you know?
That totally makes sense. And then
Yeah.
how did you get into like mindset coaching?
I went to school for social work and I realized that I was like, you know, and you'll definitely be able to attest to this. There are levels of people that I can and cannot work with. And what that means is like capacity and capability. And so when I was working in the social work world, when I was learning in the social work world, um, I was realizing that a lot of the people that I would be supporting in my actual work life would be people who have very low ability, which is not my strong suit. And so I actually switched over to psychology, and ability essentially just means that, the other person on this podcast has the capacity and ability to understand and comprehend what we're saying. Or if I say, hey, like, going for a walk every day will significantly make you feel better because of X, Y, and Z, they have the ability to understand that and to actually do that. Like they have the legs that work, all this kind of stuff, right? And so I moved over to psychology, and I then parked this dream for actually quite a long time because I found marketing and I found production, and I fell in love with using my hands. But this was always something that was uh, just sitting in the background. Like I always wanted to move forward in this way. And so in 2020, before actually the pandemic hit, I had already signed up for coaching school. And the reason I wanted to go to a school was because I know that if I'm supporting people with ability, then I also need to know my edges, right? And
Right.
so where do my edges start and stop, and where do I need to be able to be like, hey, I'm going to refer you out to a therapist, I'm going to refer you out to this person, because you're just going to need a different type of support. And through that process, I fell in love. Like I started with leadership coaching, and then I ended up getting my ACC with the International Federation for Coaches. So that means I can coach with any
Wow.
organization in the world. The training for that was hard and long and lots of hours,
Yeah.
but to me, it's like I really believe in accreditations just because I just think it keeps you integral in such a different way.
So true. Yeah.
Yeah. And then now I'm actually doing IFS training as well. So that's an internal family system, which brings in a lot more of that spiritual with the psychology mix. And it's a research back
Wow.
approach to psychology. And so for me, I was like, these are the things that actually changed my life. Even how you're saying, like, well, what kept you going and kept you wanting to move forward with money? There was this instance where I actually, ironically, didn't want to reply to my accountant. I went 3 months without replying to her, and
Yeah.
I was so blinded with the reality of like, it has nothing to do with the accountant. It has nothing to do with clicking the buttons on my computer.
Yeah.
It's actually like a pain within me that I'm feeling uncomfortable and I'm avoiding this.
So
And so,
true.
right? And so I was like, okay, like if I am going to avoid this, then I'm actually not able to transform this and grow through it and like get to the other side. I have no idea. And so it was learning that, like, okay, if I don't avoid this and I got to win, like I could do that again. And I feel like that was the impetus of like, okay, like if that's actually what changed my life, this is how I can actually truly support people in a way where I'm effective.
Wow. That's so
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah. Thank you.
Do you have any tips for what someone should look for when like hiring a coach? I feel like there's so many coaches on like social media. Everyone's promoting these things, but like how do you decide or like
Yeah.
because I feel like people are so easily influenced by like how much someone's posting or like stripe screenshots, for example. So
Yeah.
should they be looking for like credibility, like other client examples?
Yeah. The stripe screenshots. It's so funny because like here's the thing. Like
Yeah,
as a coach who gets marketed, there's industries within industries, right? And so
right.
as a coach who gets marketed to by other coaches to be like, this is how you should be running your business and this is all that. Sometimes, back in the day, I found those Stripe screenshots actually kind of motivating. And I was like, okay, well, because it expanded my perception of wealth creation, right?
Right.
But when it comes to, is that person actually capable of helping me make money? So I'm going to use somebody as an example.
Okay.
It's Shelby. Everyone knows who Shelby is
Yeah.
on the internet, okay? Shelby teaches, so she tells you, hey, you can become a sales associate and you can make so much money in this week. But Shelby doesn't do sales the same way that she used to. Shelby sells you a course.
Yeah.
right? And so she is selling you a course and she is selling you the education. Now, this is not good or bad. She's at a different phase and intersection of her business because she did the selling of the door-to-door sales. She did the closing for years. So
Yeah.
she has great scope around like, hey, this is actually how you do it. This is what works, what doesn't work. And if I'm correct, I believe that she still does some sales here. I mean, she's doing it on her Instagram every day. She's
Yeah.
still converting, right?
Right.
The reason I say that is because one, you have to understand who is teaching me and where are they at in their journey. So if somebody is so far ahead, you don't necessarily want to go with that person for maybe a deep dive because you may not understand them. You may not understand their language. You may not understand, they may not have the same patience or capacity to be able to hold you. And so maybe it's like, hey, doing a course or something like that with a person like that would be more effective than doing that one to one where you're doing so much catching up and so much learning. But then if we bring it back down to like, okay, how would I decide if I wanted to have a coach? I would want to one make sure that they offer you a pre-call. And the reason I say that is because even if it's paid at a discounted rate, the
Yeah.
pre-call allows you to decide like, do I like their energy?
So
Right? Do I
true.
like
Yeah.
their energy? Do I like the way that they speak? Can I understand them and comprehend them? For example, a lot of the work that I learned about money, I actually learned from a woman who is a like she spoke from more of a spiritual lens, a more of a somatic processing lens, and she's like a Christian woman. And
Yeah.
for me, it was just that was a language, not that I'm Christian, but that was a language set that I understood. When she would talk about character development, and
Yeah.
that was like historically biblical, but when she talked about character development, I was like, oh, I could sit here and I could avoid my accountant for 3 months, or I can develop my character and rise and become the person who replies to this person, who, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it was a language set that served me and where I was like, I can actually move forward with this and I can digest what you're saying. So I think that's very important. And then I would also say two more things. One, life experience. I wanted to start coaching when I was 20 years old. I'm not knocking a 20-year-old coach. However,
Yeah.
a 20-year-old coach, as I am a 34-year-old woman, will not understand the depths of things that I am going through today. And what I mean by that is sometimes you need resonance. And it's really beautiful to like, if somebody's like, hey, I want to go and I want to create something beautiful of my own, to have a conversation with somebody who's done that brave, courageous work already, who's had to meet their edges and had to rise to the occasion in that same way. It's like, it's, that's where the mentorship part comes in, right? Where that
Right.
mentorship is like, for example, if I'm looking for somebody to help teach me, like, okay, well, how do I scale my business? You're somebody who's actually done that. So I know now she's walked this road. She has a scope of understanding. You know what I mean? And then last thing, which I think is a little controversial in my coaching world, I believe in accreditations. I think that accreditations are important. I think boundaries are important. You know, even if you look at that from a production scope, when a company hires me and tells me like, hey, these are the words that we use, these are the colors that we use, these are the things that we do. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Now I know the bounds of my creativity, right? And I know what
Right.
will actually serve you and your company. And so same thing goes with coaching. It's like I think that you can learn 101 things on your own, but knowing how to do it for yourself is very different than knowing how to do it for someone else.
So
I know
true.
how to manage my books. I don't
Yeah.
know how to manage other people's books. So I'm not going to pretend I know how to do that, right?
Yeah.
And so that's very big for me. Like I believe in accreditations and I believe that having organization around coaching is important because you're fucking with somebody's mind, heart, and spirit. Like that's a big deal.
It totally is. Yeah. And I will often hear from girls that are like investing so much into these programs and they're just not getting what they thought they would get out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. What are some of those things that they say that they're not getting out of it?
I guess like they have this impression of they're gonna hit like a certain level in sales or they have to post like content a certain way and it doesn't feel authentic to them and kind of like forced.
Mm-hmm.
and then they're just not seeing the results that they were promised. And then they're just blowing through their cash flow and like
Yeah.
renewing contracts, hoping for different results.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, if I offer a little mind frame for that is,
Yeah.
you know, I remember signing up for this one. So I signed up for a coaching container, okay? And it was for a mastermind. And I knew after the first session, I didn't want to be a part of it. But
Yeah.
I stayed in there for, this is back in the day, I stayed in there for 6 months. And because I had already agreed, like, okay, I'm going to do this 6 month container. It was freaking expensive at the time. It was, I think it was like 3,000 something dollars, right? And so
Yeah.
I was like, okay, like, wow. Then at the end of it, I get out, and this girl who had joined it as I was exiting, she had followed me on Instagram and was just like, "Hey, like, how are you doing? How are you finding the mastermind?" She's like, "Oh, I realized after a month, like, it was sorry, after a session or two, it wasn't actually what I was looking for, and so I just got out of it. I just told the coach like, this is not what I want, and she was able to get her money back, and it was almost
Oh,
astonishing for me.
wow.
I was like." Oh, I didn't even think about that. I need
Yeah.
that thing at that time. I wasn't even thinking like I had the agency to do that. But the reason why it took me months, Cindy, it took me months to get over that. And I'll tell you why is because when I originally talked to that coach, I wanted to have one on one training. She kept pushing me and nudging me to go into the mastermind. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking, you're the expert. So I'm going to trust you. I'm going to disregard my own intuition right now.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be like, all right, like I should go to the mastermind. And then years go by, and I go and I apply for a different mastermind at a point in my life where now I know I want to be in a mastermind scenario. I don't want one on one, and I need these skills and these tools. And before I bought it, I had all of this hesitation come up, and I was like, and what I realized, I was like, oh, like I have to come, I have to make it happen.
Yeah.
Me learning this shit is just knowledge.
Yeah.
Knowledge without action does not become wisdom. And so I was like, if I actually want this to actualize in my life, then I have to do something about it. So yeah, you might have a formula and be like, "Hey, this three hook system works really well." I
Yeah.
have to adapt it to me and my newness. Otherwise, I'm fucking screwed, you know?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's so true. Cause it's like, I see like my clients like calendars. It's like, oh, I'm doing this mastermind, this coaching call. But based on our conversations, it's like they're not actually implementing anything or doing the work
Yeah.
or even like trying to do something for like 90 days straight to see if it's actually working.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's where it goes back to what I was saying about that woman who taught me about money. It goes back to that character development aspect of it. It's like, okay, it's beautiful that you want these things, but you have to rise to actually actualize them in your life. And then it goes to our relationship with responsibility. And that goes right back to our conversation about money, right? It's
Yeah.
like, why did I keep pushing forward? Is because the responsibility that comes with the life that I want was a responsibility that I had to learn how to hold. And so if I couldn't manage $100, how the hell was I going to manage $100,000?
That's what I always say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think another thing is just like people understanding that they do have to put in the work. Like, I feel like we're just getting manifesting all wrong. Like, we can just sit here, we'll get the $1 million, but it's like, no, you actually have to put in the work.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is where it kind of goes back to that accreditation part, but I'm like,
Yeah.
I got a lot of opinions here, but it's like,
Yeah.
the whole manifestation thing. There's no denouncing manifestation. It
Yeah.
like it's heavily researched. I mean, we've all had relationships with manifestation in our own lives, and the glory and the beauty of it. That said, is some people are also just really good marketers. If
Yeah.
you take a bag of chips, okay, let's think about anybody who's listening, like go and Google Lay's new chip design. And if you go and Google it, right? As a society here in 2026, we are moving towards healthier foods, real ingredients, more like honest, genuine foods. So you go take a bag of chips like Lay's, and then you look at the old bag and you look at the new bag and you look at the design that they've changed on that bag. That
Yeah.
is called good marketing because now it's got this rustic look made with real potatoes. And it's
Yeah.
not this like, and they've changed the text, everything. All of that is done intentionally to make you think like, oh, it's not that bad. I can eat this. Or when it
Yeah.
says 21 grams of protein on the bag, but you don't
Yeah.
actually understand, is it a complete 21 grams of protein? That is the same thing with the coaching industry, right? It's like
Right.
people who will sell you a fucking dream. Like, oh, you can go and sit on the beach and you don't have to do anything, and life is just going to come to you.
Yeah. Doesn't work like
It
that.
doesn't work like that, guys. But I have so much empathy for the people who are there because I have been there. And that's the thing is like I have been that person who was just like I wanted a quick win. I wanted it to just happen for me. I was tired. I just wanted differently and I just didn't know how to do it, or I didn't want to hold the responsibility of having to be the type of person that would hold it.
That totally makes sense. Yeah, I've been there too.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's real. Like what has that journey been like for you?
It was like a lot of like mindset work, like, cause just growing up, like my dad was an entrepreneur, my mom didn't work. He was like the real estate industry, money came in all at once, periods where there was nothing. During the 2008 recession, we pretty much like lost it all. And then my dad had to like rebuild from that. But I just felt like that point, it just taught me like if you have money, you just need to spend it because it can be taken away. So
Yeah.
then I was operating like that and like working 9 to 5, I spent everything I earned. Even when I started my business, same thing. And then I found like Flora Sivo's, like the Manifesting Bestie, her podcast. And then something just clicked. And then I just started journaling. And then I just had my aha moment like, I'm just being that girl from like 2008.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing. Something just clicks, and it's like, I think that, it kind of goes back to my first point. Like, you
Yes.
found somebody whose language set you understood, somebody who you could relate to or understand at least, like the way that they spoke to your spirit. And then,
Yeah.
isn't that so beautiful? Like, that intersection happened where your life could change. And this is what I think is so cool about women in this space. I was hearing this stat. I haven't looked it up, so I was a highlight reader of this, but where Emma Grede was talking about so many women when they pitch for companies, they talk about the passion and the purpose, right? They don't
Right.
talk about the profit. And men, when they pitch, they talk about profit first. And if you're going to invest in something, you want to get your money back, right?
Yeah.
And I just think that on one of the most beautiful things about a woman, like you took that lesson and now you're teaching other women how to do the work, right? How to
Right.
actually create real, tangible life shifts in their lives that are going to significantly change the way that they're living. But you're doing it from a profit first place because you have to put your oxygen mask on first. You have to
So
take care
true.
of yourself first. And I think that is such a huge lesson that you have to learn. I was like, like I said, I always wanted to be a coach at 20 years old, but I didn't know how to put my oxygen mask on yet.
Yeah.
So it's like, who the fuck am I to teach y'all how to have your oxygen mask on, you
For
know?
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It feels like you have to do the work yourself in order to support people.
Yeah. I totally agree. I totally agree. And I think, that's I think in the entrepreneurship world, it's really fascinating because it's like personal development on crack.
Yeah.
But even if you're an entrepreneur, if you're somebody who's just like loves working within your organization, I think anyone who is growth orientated, it's kind of the gift and the curse, right? It's like once you
Right.
know better, you do better. And also, yeah, once you can see further, you're like, okay, like I I have to rise. I get to rise. I'm alive. I get to rise for that.
That is so true because I feel like there was like so many like underlying issues that I kind of pushed. And then once I started my business, they all started like showing up and it's like, oh shit, like I never dealt with this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
What kind of clients do you work with like on the coaching side?
Yeah, I work with men and women, and I work with people who have already done some of the work. So I'm not the person that you go see if you don't know anything, because I really think that we have to unpack our stories and we need to understand the stories that we're telling ourselves. So, a
Yeah.
lot of that work, I would say, is typically done either in your journals or with a therapist or in a space where you just have more awareness. So, the people that I work with have a little bit more awareness. They are still working through some patterns and behaviors that they've had like a hard time getting through. And so we kind of look at that from a somatic and a mental scope as well as a spiritual scope. That's another reason why I went into the coaching space instead of the psychology space, was because I can't get rid of my own bias when it comes to spirit. And so for me, spirit, no matter what, is a part of the equation.
Yeah.
So I really think that it's like a holistic experience with your body and with your mind and your spirit and your soul. And I help people really tune into who they really are and get through things that they have tried to get through for years and years and years, who want to go deeper and know themselves further, and really learn the practice of mindfulness in their everyday life. Not just, oh, I heard that you should go to the gym 4 days a week and go to yoga. Like, okay, cool. That might
Yeah.
be what people do, but what do you do? Right?
Right.
Yeah.
So it sounds like more of a holistic blending like personal and business life together.
Yes. Yes. Um, I've worked with people who have I just worked with so many different people. I feel like, the one person who's coming to mind right now, one girl, she such a beautiful life. And when she came to me, I swear, like, her aura was so dark, and it seemed so like her spirit seemed so crushed. And it was so cool to see her at the end of she had renewed a few times, and to see her at the end of our relationship for that time, to just be so alive, and like her bringing back her aliveness and just really looking through all of the things that she had decided made her who she was. So it's like, if we think about our stories, you
Yeah.
can tell yourself like, oh, I am X person because X thing happened to me and that made me believe X about myself. But like, why are you so attached to that? Or how is that serving you? Right? And it's like
So
really
true.
getting into the crux of it.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of our beliefs aren't even our beliefs.
No. And if you think about it, the blessing about having friends with kids right now,
Yeah.
I recognize, like, I just so understand so much more about childhood development. And you recognize that, if you think about a baby crying, a baby has no communication skills. The
Yeah.
only way a baby can tell you that something's going on with them is by crying.
Right.
And a kid is having this meltdown. And if you let that meltdown happen as a total, like, whole circle, let it go all the way in and through, that entire emotion is expressed. And
Yeah.
so I essentially just let people have adult meltdowns in
Yeah.
session. But it's like so cool because so many people come and they're so afraid of feeling, and they leave feeling so capable of feeling and handling their life.
That is so true. Yeah, because like even growing up, like I used to be really emotional, like crying at every little thing, and it was just like, stop crying. And now
Yeah.
as an adult, like just working through that and just letting myself cry when I need to, it's been
Yeah.
so like therapeutic.
Yeah, because don't you notice that on the other side of that, you're just not sitting in it as long.
Yeah,
It's not even as long. Like, you've actually gotten through to the other side. You're not at point A anymore. You're at a whole new intersection of it.
yeah, I feel like just being self-aware and just like questioning everything has made like a huge difference.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And self-awareness, I really think, is one of the biggest steps, and it kind of I love how so many of the things that we're saying are relating to each other today, because
Yeah,
you could have the self-awareness that something is or is not working for you, but then it's people could say, but then what are you going to do about it?
yeah,
It's like, okay, when you think about doing something about it, what comes up for you then? That's the actual demon that you're working with within yourself, right? That's your
right.
actual opportunity.
Yeah, I feel like just adding that like pause in between before you react is
Yeah,
huge.
yeah, 100%.
How do you show up like fully present and hold space for your clients while coaching, while also being busy on the production side?
Yeah, that took me a little while to learn. Not necessarily was I feel like I feel like production is what I get to do with my hands in the real world, and it fulfills a very different need for me as an individual versus with coaching, I feel like it's my dharma. It's like my life's purpose. And it gives that, like, when I think about anything that I do in life, is it reciprocal energy? And coaching is one of those things I almost feel like it gives me more energy than it gives the other person. And so it was never the session that I found hard. It was figuring out how to manage my schedule. So like for example, I don't like if a friend is like, "Hey, like let's book a call in in June." I'm
Yeah.
like, I can't do that right now. And the reason I can't do that is because I will probably bail, and I just have a very unpredictable schedule. And so through that unpredictability, I still believe that there are patterns. And
Yeah.
so I went back and I looked at my calendar and I was like, okay, what days do I typically end up shooting? What days do I not like do I need to myself? And so I started theming out my days a bit. Not crazy because I don't have the luxury of that. Like I every day is actually very different for me.
Yeah.
But so on Mondays, I only do internal stuff. I don't take meetings unless it's like the only day or time that the person can take the meeting. I
Yeah.
don't do coaching sessions, and I don't do shoots. That is my day to make sure that I get assets over to my clients and do that kind of stuff. And then Tuesday, Wednesdays, I mainly focus on my production company. I mean, I'm focusing it on 7 days a week, but that those are the days where I would get a bulk of, let's say, my to-dos done those days. And then Wednesday to Saturday mornings is when I coach. And so I coach at a time where it's early enough where if I was to have a shoot afterwards, like I can just adjust the shoot to after that. And it's
Yeah.
only me that's getting impacted in the sense that I might be a little tired that day, but I was still able to kind of accomplish what I needed. Um, most of the time that's been working really well for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you like to do like outside of like coaching and production?
I What do I like to do outside of coaching and production? I feel like I am truly a wellness girl. So I really love cold sauna dips. Love it. Like I think ugh, it's really works really well with my immune system.
Yeah.
Um, I also I work out a lot and I love learning more about the body, and I love learning more about how to nurture my body. And then like fun stuff, I just love doing random things. I love exploring. I love learning more about the world. Like I want to go to parks I've never been to. I want to go to coffee shops I've never been to, get food places I've never been. That really empowers me. And now that I'm at a bit of a different place, um, financially and just in my business where I have more stability than I've had in a long time. I now am starting to like do that exploring in different places, so going traveling again.
Yeah.
Um yeah, so those are the things that I feel like light me up.
What do like the next like 3 to 5 years look like in the production business and your coaching?
Yeah. Production side, I just want to keep doing, honestly, like the way that we're growing, I'm absolutely loving it. We're moving more into commercial space. We're moving more into, we do lots of documentaries. Um, Documentaries, you do it because you love it, not because you're going to make good money.
Yeah.
But I, I really love that human stories, hard stories in beautiful places is what I always say. We just have a recent show out with CBC on the feelings of music. And that one's really cool because we explore how sound impacts the nervous system.
Oh,
And so
wow.
for me, I'm like, oh, like this is like the two loves of my life coming together, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so that one it was really, really cool. And I want to keep doing that. And coaching, I've been doing retreats and I've been doing more workshops and sessions. So I just wanted to, I want to, this may not be what you normally hear. I want my businesses to grow in a sustainable way. I want them to grow like year over year in a steady way
Yeah.
where I can keep up with it, while also just feeling good about building my life outside of the businesses.
That's so powerful because I feel like a lot of times people are just trying to grow way too fast and it's not sustainable.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really like I've been listening to I've been reading a lot of articles, and then I've been listening to the 10X book, and I love that book. It's fantastic thus far.
Yeah.
And I think that you can 10X your life quite a bit in many different areas.
Yeah.
But sometimes, like, a lesson I've really learned, I've had a business that has grown so fast, like almost, it felt like almost overnight. And
Yeah.
then I've had a business that's grown very slowly. I used to sell mindfulness cards. That business took 4 years to sell through all my product. So I've had things that just didn't, they worked, but they didn't really work. So for
Yeah.
me, I'm like, okay, what part did I love the most? I loved that most like steady year over year growth while 10xing my approach to it. Like right now, there's some things that I'm actually completely eliminating from my schedule because what I do in 8 hours, I can accomplish financially in half an hour. And so I'm
Yeah.
like, that's not worth it, right? But
Yeah.
I'm like, but like then I'm like at the same time, I'm not saying I want to grow overnight because
Yeah.
I just don't want that.
Yeah, I feel like there's so much like misconception on like growing and scaling. Like it's really about like removing things and like simplifying.
Yes, 100%. And like that's, something even I just really learned in my last season is, and I wonder how you go through this because with coaching, in the coaching world there's a lot of like you should do this because you love people, right? There's a
Yeah.
lot of you you should just do it out of the goodness of your heart. And I'm not saying that I don't have goodness in my heart. I mean, to hold somebody in a space of coaching, like you gotta love people, man. And if you don't, like, I don't know how the heck you got in here because it took me way too many hours to even get my accreditation. How did you fool everybody? But the thing is like I feel like I also had to really look at like, well, what is making me money? What isn't making me money? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And how is this sustainable? Because coaching is I'm using my life force to support your life force. And so many of the people that I support, their life force is so dim when they first come to me,
Yeah.
right? So it's such an exchange of energy that I'm like, okay, like, yes, I can do this. Like when I started, I did 3 sessions for $5 each because
Wow.
right? Because I was like, I
Yeah.
needed, I needed experience. I needed to get people in the door. I needed to figure out my own abilities. And now I charge a real rate that like, if you're gonna pay that much, it means you're serious too. And
Yeah.
then we can make real shit happen.
That totally makes sense. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Like even on the like tax and finance side, it's like when I'm working with people, like I pick up on their like energy and like I'm very empathetic. So like it's not just entering numbers in a tax return for me. Like I'm fully invested in my clients. And at one point we were just talking before we started recording, I had like over 200 clients living like rent free in my head and I'm like so empathetic. But holding that many clients was like making me sick. I had shingles, migraines, and it's not sustainable.
Yeah. And you know what? You get to a point where you're like, I actually can't do good work if I'm constantly compromised, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
so, I really realized that. I'm like, oh my God, I have my hands in. I was a super like multi-passionate entrepreneur, and that was great
Yeah.
at that season of my life. But now I want to be a really fucking good coach.
Yeah.
I want to be a really good producer. And so I kind of have found my two beds. Goldilocks ain't looking anymore. And I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, I'm going to 10x on these. And it's like,
Yeah.
even with the coaching, I'm like, okay, well, where do you want to be in the next 3 to 5 years? I want to have sustainable clients, like, what's it called, every quarter. And I want to do workshops because that's the way my energy works. And it also works for me financially.
Yeah. And also just understanding what works for you, like your schedule, your life. Like, I want to have kids eventually. So it's like, how can I build like tax season and my business around what's gonna be good for me in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Are you taking on like new coaching clients right now?
I am. I am. I am currently taking on two clients as we record this. But I mean, I'm always down to talk to people and see where they're at and if we're a good fit. I always do my discovery calls half as a session so we can get you guys some quick wins first. And then we go into, okay, like what would this look like for the next 4 months? And it's taken me a while too, also to figure out like, okay, well, like, what does that program look like? Like, what does if you were to only come to me for one, like most of my clients, they resign like at three times typically. And so if you were only to come to me for one time, like one round of sessions, it's 4 months, and I feel like after 4 months, like I can feel confident that I have supported you in shifting and transforming. Versus before I was like, I could have figured it, but yeah, now we're there. Now we're there.
Yeah, even like the call, remember I reached out to you. I think it was like a few years ago where I was just like lost in my business. Like you did that initial call with me, and then you were really transparent about like what I was looking for, what you offered, and how it just wasn't a good fit.
Mhm.
So like I would
How
say
did it
like
feel on your side though to get that? Like to be like, I don't think this is what you
yeah.
need.
It felt good because you don't really get that from like people you have like discovery calls with. I feel like even for myself, when I had discovery calls, it's like, okay, like I'm gonna take this client on. But having that conversation with you and just hearing that, it just clicked for me. Like, just because you have a discovery call with someone doesn't mean they're the right fit for you or you're a right fit for them. And then it just changed how I did discovery calls going forward too.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember when you reached out and I was like, I feel like you I always call them trailheads, right? And
Yeah.
so there's all these trailheads and you're probably going to end up in the same spot. But right now, the biggest boulder that you need to move is actually a business boulder.
Yeah.
And that was not the boulder where I was going to be able to support you the best. And I was just like, what do I want for you? I want you to have the best result possible because I trust God, I trust life, I trust my skills that the right people will come into my container, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it just shows like you're not operating from like a scarcity mindset. Like, okay, if I don't take this client on, like, am I gonna lose out on like cash coming in for the month or just clients in general?
Yeah. Yeah. And that was hard. That was
Yeah.
actually that when you reached out, that was around the time where I was doing so much money work.
Yeah.
Um, and I was actively working through that. And like going to that, just doubling down on this, like there are times where you're gonna contort yourself for business. And I think I learned that more in my production world than I did. Actually, I did learn this in my coaching world as well, but like in my production world, I would contort myself to be like, okay, I can figure this out and we can make
Yeah.
it work. And even though I knew like it's not that it wasn't going to serve them, it wasn't actually serving us. You know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
was more of a headache for us to do this rather than like, okay, like trust the process and move forward. And in my coaching world, for example, why I know like I am not the person, I'm not the person for the person who's never has no self-awareness, has never done any work, and there's no shitting on that person. It's just you're at a different point of the intersection of the journey as per when I can support you. Because when I did work with those people, I realized that I'm actually not supporting them. And I think this is where it goes back to like what I was saying. It's so beautiful that you went through this. You shifted and then you wanted to help support other people shift.
Yeah.
If you actually care about the person on the other side, you're going to hold yourself with like 10x integrity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So much more integrity. Like I want you to have wins whether that win is with me or not with me.
So true. And it's funny that you say that because when I took on like certain clients, like I could sense it, but I just kept ignoring it. And then last week I ended up letting go of three clients.
Mhm. Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
big, right? It's
Yeah.
big because, I think that with mindset stuff, people are like, oh, am I going to reach a destination? And that's why I always say, like, well, like when people are like, okay, well, what will I learn from you? I'm like, you'll learn tools for everyday well being and
Yeah.
everyday decision making and everyday ability to work with your patterns and your habits. Because look at you, here you go, like years later, have
Yeah.
that same situation come up because that is your next opportunity to hold yourself in bigger integrity, right? And
Right.
so how do you lean on the tools and the know with all that you have to actually make that decision?
Yeah, I was even saying like just trusting the process of
Yeah.
like getting into that new space. Like for example, with myself, it's like all I've known is like tax returns, tax clients, but it's like I really enjoy like the cash flow projections, the forecasting, but it's like that's so new to me. So
Mhm.
there's like this fear of letting go of something that's so familiar.
Mhm. Yeah, I totally get that. Oh, I totally get that. I get that so much more in my production company
Yeah.
because there's this point where you're like, I could do this in my sleep.
Yeah.
And there's something that's nurturing about, okay, I'm so good at this. But then like it goes back to like, it's like I said, there's fucking themes in this podcast.
Yeah.
It's you've got to rise again, right?
Right.
I might find that interesting and I might find that like really curious, but I have to rise to be the person who can do that. And like, what if I'm wrong? What if I don't know the answer? Like, can I hold that tension within my body and get to the other side?
That's so powerful.
Yeah.
I feel like I just had so many aha moments in our conversation.
Same here.
Yeah.
You know what? We were talking before this, and I was like, I'm so tired. And this is what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
coaching gives me such a, not that I'm coaching you, but talking about it and
Yeah.
just like, it gives me so much life. I feel so much more alive because I'm like, this is the reality of being a human. And this is also the beautiful part about being a human. We can think about our own thoughts. Like we can understand ourselves in such a different way than any other animal that we know and understand. It's like, that is so cool, you know?
Yeah. That's actually a reason why I even started my podcast is to have conversations with other people because it just lights
Yeah.
me up.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, thank you so much.
What are some like quick action steps someone can take like after listening to our conversation?
Yeah. Oh, that's a really good question. Okay. So, one thing that sticks out for me from this conversation is um how do I attach what is my attachment style to money? And so like am I anxious with money? Am I avoidant with money? Am I a bit of both? And where and how does that show up? So I would journal on that question. Because when you have awareness, then you can start to move differently. Another thing is I would I would honestly I would say whatever stuck out to you, write it in a notepad and then write why did that stick out to me? And then write what could I learn from what stuck out to me? Because sometimes you hear things and you're like you have these click moments and you're just like you just click and then you move on with your day. But if you
Yeah.
gave yourself a second to just sink into that click, it would click so much deeper. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what is like the best way for our audience to connect with you?
Yes. You guys can connect with me on Instagram at I am Summan Kandola. And you can watch the Think Space podcast, which I would love to have you on, and I will have you on soon. Um, and those are probably the best places to find me right now. And if you guys are interested in coaching, you can learn a lot more about it from my link in bio or just DM me and we can chat and see if we're a good fit.
And what kind of topics do you talk about like on your podcast? Just so our
Yeah.
listeners can tune into that as well.
Yeah, we talk about entrepreneurship. We talk about creative pursuits. We talk about mindset, spiritual growth, faith. So a mixed bag, but it's really cool. The other day I talked to somebody who he was a art designer. He is an art designer, and we started talking about how he went to jail in Japan,
Wow.
and how it changed his life. And so
Yeah.
like I feel like one of the reasons I wanted to start up our podcast again was because I have access to so many random cool people that have
Yeah.
had such diverse life experiences. And so you'll get that. Not everybody's coming from the same place. Not everybody's an entrepreneur, but everybody is passionate and excited about something. And it's about understanding like what fuels that passion and that ambition.
Thank you so much, Suman. I'll share all your details in the show notes.
Thank you.
If you're a founder who wants real strategy, not noise, and you want someone in your corner helping you build a business that feels aligned, is profitable, and actually supports your life, you can apply for CFO on Call. This is my one-on-one financial partnership for established founders, typically making between $500K to $2 million, who want clarity, who want structure and confidence with their numbers. The link is in the show notes so you can schedule a profit strategy call, or you can DM me CFO on Instagram at Cindy Kumar and I'll send over all the details.